Over the past 20 years, I built a $30 million property portfolio and created the financial freedom I used to only dream about. But here's the truth. The strategy I'm about to share with you is one of the biggest reasons I got here. It's the exact method I've used to tap into the value of properties that I already own, to fund new purchases, grow faster, and multiply returns without ever needing to sell. In plain English, it's how I've made this system work for me. Reinvesting gains, boosting cash flows, and doing it in a way that's nearly tax-free. If you're aiming for more than just a comfortable retirement, if you want real financial freedom, this is a strategy you need to know. And that strategy is using equity. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, just a quick heads up. Using equity the right way can open a lot of doors, but it's also easy to make the wrong move if you don't have the right advice. That's why having a solid team around you makes all the difference. That is exactly what we do at Freedom Funding. We help serious investors use strategies like this to grow their wealth without the stress. If you'd like to have a quick chat about your situation, there's a link in the description below. With that said, let's get into it. There's a big difference between how much your property is worth and how much you can actually borrow from it. Let's break it down. Total equity is simply the difference between your property's value and what you still owe on the loan. But just because you have equity doesn't mean you can use it all. Usable equity is the portion the bank will actually let you borrow. To work that out, the bank gets a formal valuation of your property, applies their LVR policy, usually up to 80%, and then checks that you can afford the repayments. Equity is the difference between what your property is worth and how much you still owe on the loan. So let's just say you have an investment property you think is worth $1 million. Your current loan on it is $500,000. That gives you $500,000 in equity. That's the part you own. But here's the thing, you can't borrow the full $500,000. Banks have different LVR rules. Usually they won't lend to you for more than 80% of the value of the property unless you pay extra in fees or LMI. So let's do the numbers. 80% of $1 million is $800K. You already owe $500K. That means that the bank might lend you up to additional $300,000 in equity. This is the portion you could potentially pull out and use for a deposit, renovations, or buying your next property. Assuming, of course, that you're able to service the debt and meet the bank's equity release policies. Because, just to be clear, using equity to buy a new property will increase your repayments, so you need to make sure you've got cash flow to support that. Let me be clear, equity alone is not enough. You also need serviceability. Now that you understand what equity is and the key requirements for accessing it, let me show you where most people go wrong and how to avoid the mistakes that cost investors thousands. One of the most common frustrations investors run into when trying to use equity is this. The bank comes back with a valuation that's lower than what they believe their property is worth. That gap between what you think it's worth and what they're willing to lend against can make or break your ability to move forward. Now, this is where working with the right mortgage broker matters, because most people don't realize that banks don't all value properties the same way. A good broker knows how to navigate that, both by choosing the right lender and by understanding how each one handles valuations. Right now, we're seeing a couple of lenders consistently come back with superior results through their online valuation platforms. But it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's case by case. What works for one property may not work for another. The most robust type of valuation is a full in-person inspection. That's when a licensed valuer visits a property, reviews comparable sales, and submits a detailed report back to the bank. It's also the one valuation type that can be the most influenced if you're prepared. If you're able to present a strong, well-supported case for your property's value through your broker to the valuation firm, you'll significantly increase your chances of getting a more favorable result. And in many cases, that makes all the difference. Because here's the truth, you've got far more influence over a valuation that's done by a human than one that's spit out by an automated system. With a system, there's no flexibility. What it spits out is final. But with a full valuation, there's room to make your case, as long as you're prepared. That said, not every valuer will see things your way. Some will dig their heels in no matter what evidence you provide. In those cases, it's often worth getting multiple full valuations to see if that valuer was the exception or if there is consensus across the board. Now that you know what equity is and the common problems that you face when trying to pull it out, plus how to fix them, let's dive deeper into what it looks like from a tax and timing perspective. Now, tax is where a lot of people get caught out. When you refinance to access equity, whether the interest is tax deductible depends on what the funds are used for. If you're using that money to invest, to say buy another property, the interest is usually tax deductible. But if you're using it for personal expenses like a holiday, a car, or paying off your own home, it's not tax deductible. It's called the purpose test, and it's really important. It's not about what the loan is secured against, it's about where the money's actually going. So if you're planning to access equity, get it structured right from the start, because the ATO is watching how that money's used. Now, if you're wondering whether you should access equity now or wait, look, it depends on your personal situation, and you should speak to a professional before making any moves. But if you're thinking long term and you want to stay ahead of the market, the answer is often yes. Here's the thing most people don't realize unless they are properly educated. If you go straight to a bank, you're locked into their valuation, and some won't even tell you what that is unless you put it into a full application. Are you really going to apply with 6 or 7 lenders just to figure out how much equity you can access and blow up your credit file in the process? Or would you rather have one conversation and get clarity across the board without having to lift a finger? That's exactly what a good broker does. And that's exactly what my team and I can help you do at Freedom Funding. We know the lenders who'll give you the strongest valuation, the highest usable equity, and the best structure depending on your goals. So if you're serious about building wealth, don't go in blind. Click the link, book a quick chat, and we'll show you what's actually possible. And just remember, brokers are paid by the bank, so you can sit down with an expert team, have your entire strategy mapped out, and it won't cost you a cent. No guesswork, no damage to your credit file, just answers. And with that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you found this video valuable and walked away with some practical insights to help you on your journey. If you're new here, hit subscribe. I'll be posting property education videos every week to support you every step of the way.